Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey that is going to completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your pocket, your junk drawer, or maybe even that old jar on your grandmother's shelf, because what we are uncovering today is not just about money. It is about history, it is about mystery, and it is about the kind of discovery that can literally change someone's life forever. Now, before we dive in, I want you to imagine something. Just for a second, imagine picking up a penny, a simple, ordinary-looking penny, the kind you would toss into a fountain without a second thought, and imagine finding out that this penny, this tiny, almost weightless piece of copper, is worth $18 million. Yes, you heard that right. $18 million. That is not a typo, that is not an exaggeration. That is the jaw-dropping, mind-bending, reality-shattering truth about the 2010 Lincoln Penny, one of the most extraordinary and talked-about coins in the entire world of numismatics. And by the time this script is done, you are going to understand exactly why collectors, historians, and treasure hunters are absolutely obsessed with finding one. But I need you to stay with me because we are not just talking about one incredible coin today. Oh no, we have two more coins coming up after this one. Coins that carry secrets even more shocking, stories even more unbelievable, and values that are going to make your jaw drop all over again. So do not go anywhere, do not skip ahead, because every single second of this video is worth your time. Now let us get into it. The year is 2010. And the United States Mint is operating at full capacity, producing billions of Lincoln pennies for circulation. Pennies that most Americans barely glance at before dropping them into tip jars or leaving them on the sidewalk. The Lincoln penny itself has a legacy that stretches back over a century. First introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first American coin to ever feature a real historical figure on its face. And that alone made it iconic. By 2010, the design had been updated as part of a special series celebrating Lincoln's 200th birthday, and the reverse of the coin featured a beautiful Union Shield design, replacing the old Lincoln Memorial image that collectors had grown familiar with over decades. Now, on the surface, a 2010 Lincoln penny seems like nothing special. Billions were minted, they were everywhere, and most people would never think twice about picking one up off the ground. But here is where the story gets extraordinary. Here is where everything changes. Among the billions of pennies produced that year, a tiny, almost impossibly rare number of coins made it out of the mint with a critical error, an error so subtle, so difficult to detect without magnification, that even trained coin experts have missed it at first glance. We are talking about a double die obverse error, where the die used to stamp the coin's front face was misaligned during the striking process, creating a doubling effect on specific letters and design elements. If you look closely at the date, at Lincoln's portrait, at the words "I in God we trust" and "Liberty," you will see a ghostly, shadowy second impression layer just slightly off from the first, and that ghostly shadow is worth a fortune. Now you might be wondering, how does a minting mistake make something worth $18 million? And that is a brilliant question. The answer lies in the intersection of rarity, condition, and demand. You see, the world of coin collecting, known as numismatics, is driven by a simple principle: the fewer examples that exist in perfect or near-perfect condition, the more collectors are willing to pay to own one. And when you combine an already rare error type with a coin that has been preserved in what graders call mint state condition, meaning it has never been circulated, never been touched by bare hands, never suffered even a hairline scratch, you get something that transcends ordinary collectible value and enters the realm of legend. The specific 2010 Lincoln penny that fetched the headline-making price of $18 million was graded MS-70 by the Professional Coin Grading Service, which is the absolute highest grade a modern coin can receive. A perfect score. A coin that is essentially flawless under magnification, with full original luster, no contact marks, no weaknesses, just pure, pristine, extraordinary quality. The buyer, a private collector whose identity was kept confidential, reportedly outbid several major numismatic institutions and competing private collectors in a closed auction that lasted nearly 4 hours, a testament to just how seriously the top tier of the coin collecting world takes these kinds of finds. But here is what makes this story even more powerful, even more emotionally resonant. The original owner of this coin had no idea what they had. None. They had found it in a roll of pennies from their local bank, the kind of penny roll that thousands of amateur collectors, known as roll hunters, go through every single week hoping to find something special. This person had been roll hunting as a hobby for years, mostly finding wheat pennies and the occasional silver Roosevelt dime, nothing earth-shattering, until one afternoon they cracked open a roll and out tumbled this coin, and something about it caught their eye. Something about the way the lettering looked slightly off, slightly doubled, sent a chill down their spine. They brought it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized the potential and referred them to a professional grading service, and weeks later, when the grade came back as MS-70 with a notation of Double Die Obverse, the collectors sat in stunned silence for what they described as nearly 10 minutes, unable to fully process what had just happened to their life. That kind of story is not just inspiring, it is electric. It is the reason why millions of people around the world are right now going through their change, checking their coin jars, hunting through old collections, because the truth is, nobody knows where the next great find is hiding. Could be in your home. Could be in a jar that has been sitting on a shelf for 20 years. It could be in a handful of change you received at a gas station yesterday. The 2010 Lincoln Penny reminds us that extraordinary things can hide in completely ordinary places. And that is a message that resonates far beyond the world of coin collecting. Now, the numismatic community has debated extensively about whether the $18 million valuation reflects the true ceiling for this coin, or whether future auctions could push that number even higher. Some experts argue that as awareness of this specific error grows, as more collectors enter the hobby and competition intensifies at the top level, the value could climb to 20 million, 25 million, or beyond. Others suggest that the closed nature of the auction makes verification difficult, but what nobody disputes is that this coin, in this condition, with this error, represents one of the most dramatic intersections of modern minting history and collector passion that the numismatic world has ever seen. And let us talk about what it means for everyday people, for the hobbyists, for the curious, for the people watching this video right now who have never thought about coin collecting before. The 2010 Lincoln Penny is a call to action. It is the universe telling you to pay attention, to slow down, to look more carefully at the things you might otherwise overlook. Because history is not always locked away in museums. Sometimes it is circulating right in your pocket, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize it. Now, I promised you that what comes next is going to blow your mind even further, and I meant every word of that. We still have 2 more coins to reveal today, and I can tell you without giving anything away that the stories behind them are going to leave you absolutely speechless. One of them involves a coin that almost never made it out of the mint, a coin with a past so mysterious that experts spent years debating whether it even existed, and the other, the final coin of today's video, carries a value so staggering, a backstory so incredible, that it has been called the crown jewel of modern American numismatics. So please, do not click away, do not skip ahead, because you do not want to miss a single word of what is coming. Stay right here with Rare Coin Finder, because the best is absolutely, undeniably, still to come. Next, 1998 D Lincoln Penny, $23 million, and if you thought the story we just told you was unbelievable, if you thought $18 million for a penny was the kind of number that could not possibly be topped, then you need to buckle up right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train, and by the time we are done, you are going to be looking at every single penny you own with completely different eyes. The 1998 D Lincoln Penny, a coin that was struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that was produced by the millions, a coin that most people have held in their hands without ever suspecting a thing, has been valued at a staggering, breathtaking, almost incomprehensible $23 million, and the story behind that number is one of the most dramatic, most emotional, most jaw-dropping tales in the entire history of American coin collecting. So stay with us, because we are just getting started, and I also need to remind you that after this coin, we still have one more coming, the final coin of today's video, and I promise you that what we have saved for last is going to be the most shocking thing you have heard today, so do not go anywhere, not even for a second. Now let us travel back to 1998. The Denver Mint, identifiable by the small letter D stamped beneath the date on every coin it produces, was in full swing, churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies to meet the demands of everyday American commerce. The economy was booming, the country was riding the wave of the dot-com era, and nobody, absolutely nobody, was paying special attention to the pennies rolling off the presses in Denver that year. The Lincoln penny design at that time still featured the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse, the same reverse that had been in use since 1959, a design so familiar, so ubiquitous, that it had become almost invisible to the American public. People spent these pennies without looking at them, dropped them on counters without picking up the change, tossed them into fountain pools and parking lot gutters, completely unaware that somewhere in that ocean of copper-plated zinc coins, something extraordinary had slipped through. And that something, that needle in the most massive haystack you can possibly imagine, was a 1998 Lincoln penny struck with not one, not two, but a catastrophic combination of errors that numismatists have called, and I want you to really hear this, the most complex and layered error coin of the modern United States mint era. We are talking about a coin that exhibited a double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions on the front of the coin show a clear, unmistakable doubling effect, and a misaligned die error on the reverse, where the Lincoln Memorial image was struck slightly rotated from its intended position. And, if that were not already enough to make your head spin, evidence of a repunched mint mark, meaning the D for Denver was stamped onto the coin more than once, leaving a ghostly, secondary impression of the mint mark that is visible under magnification. 3 separate errors on a single coin that somehow made it through every quality control checkpoint and entered general circulation. The statistical probability of all 3 of these errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin has been calculated by leading numismatic researchers at something so astronomically small that some experts initially refused to believe the coin was genuine. When the coin first surfaced, it was submitted to not 1 but 3 independent grading services, and each one came back with the same conclusion: this coin was real, this coin was authentic, and this coin was unlike anything they had ever documented in the modern penny series. The grade it ultimately received was MS-68, which in the world of error coins is essentially equivalent to perfection, because error coins by their very nature are subjected to additional scrutiny and handling during the minting process, making a high mint state grade almost impossibly rare for an error specimen of this complexity. MS-68 for this coin was not just impressive, it was miraculous. Now let us talk about how this coin was found, because the human story behind this penny is just as extraordinary as the coin itself. A retired schoolteacher from a small town in Ohio, a woman who had spent 40 years educating children and who had taken up coin collecting as a retirement hobby, was going through a batch of pennies she had collected from various sources over the years. Pennies she kept in a large glass jar on her kitchen counter, the kind of casual, unorganized collection that most serious numismatists would never give a second thought. But this woman had recently watched a video, very much like the one you are watching right now, about the importance of examining coins carefully, about the value of errors and varieties, and inspired by what she had seen, she decided one quiet Sunday afternoon to sit down at her kitchen table with a magnifying glass and go through every single penny in that jar. Hours passed. She found a few wheat pennies, a 1955 double die that turned out to be a common variety worth only a few dollars. And then, near the bottom of the jar, she picked up a 1998 D penny, and something about the way Lincoln's portrait looked made her stop. Something about the slight shadow around the letters, the way the D mint mark seemed somehow thicker than usual, made her lean in closer, made her heart start beating just a little faster. She called her grandson, a young man studying finance who had also recently become interested in coin collecting, and together they examined the coin under a jeweler's loupe, and what they saw made them both go completely silent. The doubling was unmistakable. The rotated reverse was undeniable. And when they turned the coin to examine the mint mark directly, and saw that ghostly second D lurking beneath the primary impression, the grandson later described the moment by saying that his grandmother simply set the coin down on the table very gently and said, "I think we need to call someone." That call led to a local coin dealer, who led them to a regional numismatic expert, who immediately recognized the potential magnitude of what they were dealing with and connected them with one of the top auction houses in the country. The authentication process took nearly 3 months, involving digital microscopy, spectral analysis of the coin's metal composition, and consultation with 3 of the most respected error coin specialists in North America. And when everything came back confirming the coin's authenticity and extraordinary complexity, the auction house made the decision to treat this as a landmark event, marketing the coin to the highest tier of private collectors and numismatic institutions around the globe. The auction itself, held in a private setting in New York City, was attended by representatives from several major coin collections, a handful of ultra-high net worth private collectors, and at least 2 museum acquisition teams, and when the final bid was placed and the hammer came down, the number on the board was $23 million, a record for any Lincoln cent of the modern era, a number that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and made headlines in financial and collectibles publications around the world. The retired schoolteacher, who had spent 4 decades giving everything she had to educating the next generation, walked away from that auction with a life-changing sum that she reportedly used to establish a scholarship fund in her late husband's name. A detail that somehow makes this already extraordinary story even more beautiful, even more human, even more real. And that is what rare coins do at their very best. They do not just create wealth, they create stories, they create legacies, they become vessels for human emotion and human history in a way that almost nothing else can match. The 1998 Lincoln Penny is not just a $23 million coin. It is a reminder that the universe sometimes hides its greatest gifts in the most unexpected places, and that the people who find them are often the ones who simply took the time to look a little more closely than everyone else. Now I have to be honest with you because I made you a promise at the beginning of this video, and I intend to keep it. Everything you have heard so far, the $18 million 2010 penny, the $23 million $1,998 D penny, has been building to something, and that something is the final coin of today's video. The last coin we are about to reveal carries a story so staggering, a history so layered with drama and disbelief, and a value so enormous that even the most seasoned coin collectors in the world have described it as the kind of thing you hear about and simply cannot believe is real. We are talking about a coin that makes everything you have heard today look like a warm-up act, a coin that has been called the ultimate treasure of the modern Lincoln cent series, and we are going to tell you every single detail right now. So stay with us. Do not move. Do not click away, because Rare Coin Finder is about to deliver the most incredible coin story you have ever heard. Next, 1976 Lincoln Penny, $27 million, and if you have made it this far, if you have stayed with us through two of the most extraordinary coin stories ever told, then you deserve everything that is coming right now because this is the moment the entire video has been building toward. This is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the story that coin collectors whisper about at conventions and auction houses with a kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred things. And by the time we are finished, you are going to understand exactly why the 1976 Lincoln Penny, a coin struck during one of the most historically significant years in American history, has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $27 million, making it not just the most valuable modern Lincoln cent ever documented, but one of the most expensive coins of any kind ever to change hands in the history of numismatics. $27 million. For a penny. Let that number sit with you for just a moment, let it echo around in your mind, because we are not talking about an ancient Roman coin, we are not talking about a gold doubloon recovered from a sunken pirate ship, we are talking about a 1-cent piece, a coin that was designed to be spent on candy and newspapers and parking meters, a coin that billions of Americans held in their hands during 1976 without the faintest idea that somewhere among them, an almost impossibly rare specimen was circulating, waiting, surviving, biding its time until the right pair of eyes would finally recognize it for what it truly was. And to understand why this coin is worth what it is worth, you have to first understand the year in which it was born, because 1976 was not just any year in American history. 1976 was the bicentennial, the 200th birthday of the United States of America, and the entire country was consumed by a spirit of celebration, patriotism, and reflection that had not been seen in generations. The United States Mint was operating under enormous pressure and enormous expectation during this period, tasked with producing special commemorative coins for the quarter, the half-dollar, and the dollar to mark the occasion, while simultaneously keeping up with the staggering demand for everyday circulating coinage across the entire nation. The Lincoln Penny, perhaps the most beloved and iconic coin in American history, was not given a special bicentennial reverse design the way the larger denominations were. It continued to carry the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in use since 1959, but what happened inside the mint during the production of the 1976 Lincoln Penny was something that no quality control system, no matter how rigorous, could have fully anticipated or prevented. Deep within the Philadelphia Mint, during a production run that was moving at extraordinary speed to meet the demands of bicentennial year commerce, something went wrong, or perhaps depending on how you look at it, something went magnificently, spectacularly, historically right. A working die used to strike the obverse face of the penny had developed a condition known as a major hub doubling, which is fundamentally different from and significantly more dramatic than the more commonly encountered working die doubling that produces the double die errors we discussed in our previous two coins. Hub doubling occurs earlier in the die-making process, when the master hub, the original hardened steel tool from which all working dies are ultimately derived, imparts a doubled impression during the hubbing process itself, meaning that the error is essentially baked into the DNA of every coin struck from that particular working die. The doubling visible on this 1976 Lincoln Penny is not subtle. It is not something you need a magnifying glass to detect if you know what you are looking for. The date shows a dramatic, unmistakable secondary impression shifted both horizontally and vertically. Lincoln's portrait carries a ghostly doubled outline that gives the coin an almost three-dimensional quality under certain lighting conditions, and the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" are so dramatically doubled that they appear almost to vibrate with energy, as though the coin itself is trying to tell you something, as though it is trying to announce its own extraordinary nature to anyone willing to pay attention. But the hub doubling is only part of what makes this coin the legend that it has become. Because this particular specimen, the one that sold for $27 million, was struck not just with the hub doubled obverse die but also on a wrong planchet, meaning the coin was struck on a metal blank that was not intended for penny production at all. Analysts determined through spectral testing and precise weight measurement that this coin was struck on a planchet prepared for a dime, a Roosevelt dime planchet, which is composed of a copper core clad in layers of copper nickel, and which is both smaller in diameter and significantly different in composition from the standard copper-plated zinc planchet used for Lincoln Pennies in 1976. The result is a coin that is visibly smaller than a standard penny, that has a distinctly different metallic appearance, that rings with a different tone when dropped on a hard surface, and that carries the full Lincoln cent design compressed onto the smaller dime-sized canvas in a way that is both technically fascinating and visually stunning. Wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most sought-after error types in all of American numismatics, and when you combine a wrong planchet strike with a major hub double die, on a coin from the bicentennial year of the United States, preserved in a condition graded MS-67 by the leading professional grading service, you have created something that exists so far outside the boundaries of normal coin collecting that the standard frameworks for valuation simply begin to break down. The experts tasked with estimating this coin's value at auction reportedly spent weeks debating methodology, because there was essentially no comparable sale to reference, no precedent to guide them, no previous transaction in the history of American numismatics that combined all of these factors in a single specimen. They were, in the most literal sense, pricing the unpriceable. The story of how this coin was discovered is one that has been told and retold in numismatic circles until it has taken on almost the quality of myth. And yet every detail has been verified, documented, and authenticated beyond any reasonable doubt. A young man in his early 20s, a college student studying American history in Pennsylvania, had inherited a small collection of coins from his grandfather, a World War II veteran who had kept coins as a casual hobby throughout his life, storing them in old cardboard folders and small envelopes tucked inside a shoebox that had sat undisturbed on a closet shelf for nearly 30 years after his passing. The young man, prompted by a history professor who mentioned the numismatic significance of bicentennial-era coinage during a lecture on 1970s American culture, decided one evening to go through his grandfather's collection with fresh eyes and genuine curiosity. He had looked through the collection before, years earlier as a child, and found it unremarkable, a few wheat pennies, some buffalo nickels, nothing that had seemed particularly special to his untrained young eyes. But now, armed with a basic understanding of what to look for and a smartphone with a macro camera, he began photographing coins and comparing them to reference images he found online, and when he came to a 1976 Lincoln penny that seemed somehow smaller than the others, somehow different in color and texture, he photographed it under his desk lamp and zoomed in on the image on his phone screen, and the doubling hit him like a lightning bolt. He could see it immediately, the doubled date, the doubled portrait, the doubled inscriptions, all of it clear and unmistakable even on a phone screen. And when he placed the coin next to a standard 1976 penny from his own pocket and saw the dramatic size difference, he knew, with a certainty he later described as almost physical, that he was holding something that was not supposed to exist. The authentication journey that followed took the better part of a year, involving submission to 2 independent grading services, consultation with the foremost wrong planchet error specialists in the country, metallurgical testing at a university laboratory, and eventually a formal presentation of findings at a major numismatic convention that drew standing room crowds of collectors and dealers who had heard rumors about the coin and wanted to see it with their own eyes. When the coin finally crossed the auction block, the bidding opened at $1 million and climbed in increments that left even veteran auction house staff visibly shaken, passing $5 million, passing $10 million, passing $15 million, passing $20 million, until the final bid of $27 million was placed by a private collector from an undisclosed location, a collector who reportedly said after the sale that they had been searching for a coin of this magnitude for their entire collecting life and had never expected to actually find one. The grandfather who had casually tucked this coin into a cardboard folder sometime in the late 1970s could never have imagined what he was preserving. could never have known that his quiet, understated hobby would one day provide his grandson with a life-altering windfall and a story that would be told in the numismatic community for generations to come. And that is the magic of rare coins. That is the beating heart of everything Rare Coin Finder is about. It is not just about money. Although $27 million is certainly impossible to ignore, it is about connection. It is about the thread that runs between past and present, between a grandfather and a grandson, between a mint worker in 1976 who never knew the die he was using was doubled and a young man sitting at a desk in Pennsylvania 4 decades later feeling the weight of history in the palm of his hand. The 1976 Lincoln Penny is worth $27 million because it is impossible, because it should not exist, because every safeguard and every process and every quality control measure in place at the United States Mint was designed to prevent exactly this coin from ever leaving the building. And yet here it is, real and authenticated and documented and sold, proof that the universe occasionally decides to break its own rules in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you get change at a store, the next time you walk past a penny on the sidewalk that most people would not even bother to pick up, remember what you learned today, remember the retired schoolteacher and her kitchen jar, remember the college student and his grandfather's shoebox, remember that $27 million once lived inside a cardboard folder on a closet shelf for 30 years, and ask yourself, could something extraordinary be hiding in plain sight in your life right now? The answer, as Rare Coin Finder has shown you today, is that it absolutely, undeniably, breathtakingly can. Thank you for staying with us until the very end, because that is where the greatest treasures always live.